Yes, it's live. So here we are with another beautiful episode for the Aligned Dad podcast. Scott, what have you got?
Morning, Prashant. Hell, probably evening for you over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, last night I went out with Charlotte and the kids, and we went to a mate's 40th birthday. And this one got me thinking, because me and Charlotte are sort of sitting down, sun setting behind us, we're having a beer, and Violet's off playing in the playground, and we had Louis in the stroller next to us, and so just watching all these kids have a ball, running around and that kind of thing. And then I just sort of turned to Charlotte and I'm just like, man, like we get so involved with kids play day, like playing these days.
Yep.
So I'm sort of like, I never had that growing up. Yeah, my dad never would have like run with me and sort of played on the playground with me and all that kind of stuff. So just sort of thinking, this one for me is like called Playground Rules.
Mm.
And well, hang on, Prashant, give me a sec.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, dude. I just just sort of talking about my dad.
Mm.
Yeah, give me a tick. Give me a tick. I'm getting there. Yeah, look, I guess just sort of hanging out together and that kind of stuff back in the day. Like our parents never really sort of did that. And just sort of thinking back, like my dad passed away not long ago. Sort of like it's coming actually probably 10 years ago now, and
Mm.
I'm just sort of going through a bit of stuff too with my mum, like at the moment. So it's
Mm.
just like when you bring that up, it's like all this stuff sort of
So
coming up.
so before you go on to that,
Mm.
uh, what got your heart shrinking right now? What happened?
I don't know, man. I think it was just like it's just there's a build up going on at the moment for me. There's
Mm.
like because my mum is going through like she's got early onset dementia and it's just getting worse and worse.
Mm.
And she lives about 6 hours away, and so I've got to try and I've got three brothers, and one of my brothers is living with her at the moment, and we're sort of trying to move her up here.
Mm.
Um, it's difficult, man. It's like, yeah, it's hard work because you sort of speak to her on the phone, and she's just it's hard for her to sort of keep up with conversations and stuff at the moment, and
Mm.
it's kind of disconcerting, man. It's really
Mm.
hard, eh?
Mm.
Um, And
So
like my dad was like they were rocks, you know what I mean, together. They did everything together. And once my dad went, it was kind of like, my mum's just
mm.
sort of lost her way a lot, She sort of lost that foundation, I guess, and
Yeah. Mm.
deteriorated pretty quickly, hey.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
No, so when it's very or rather I would say I'm seeing you in this kind of a being after a very long time, after our mentoring program together, which we took up a few years back. uh,
Mm.
Scott, my only wish for you is that get this out as much as you can.
Yeah.
Let these thoughts, these emotions, have multiple outlets for you to to, I would not say vent it out, but to speak it out. And it's so amazing that uh, growing up, the kind of deep and what do you say, maybe an unseen bond that we share with our parents, even if they don't want it to be, or they want it to be, and whether we want to receive it or not receive it, the kind of bonds that we share, it's what you experience right now is just a testimony of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And uh, happy that I'm happy that you chose to uh, respond to your inner inner child, wanting to emote and just be. um,
Yeah.
and it's good that we both as friends are there for each other to to send and receive whatever support we can for each other. So yeah, Scott,
Yeah,
uh,
appreciate it, man.
thank you for for showing this side of you, and helping yourself, and definitely helping me and all of us, uh,
Mm.
through whatever is in store for us too.
Thanks, Prashant. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some stuff going on, because it's just like you could just feel the build up. I could just feel the build up inside. So it's like, yeah, what you're saying about just having that outlet to let out is really important, because you kind of think you got it all together, right? It's just sort
Yeah.
of going through a day, and for me, it's like just trying to manage the waves of thoughts that go through your head. You're like, okay, like just let it go. It's just the ego, but yeah, I think it does a lot more. It goes deeper, that's for sure, than just a thought. Those thoughts have some sort of thread that run through your whole body.
Mm.
Obviously, because this was not unplanned, unexpected.
Yes.
So it just sort of pops out. But I mean, look, getting back to what I was saying,
Yeah.
um, like do we get involved with our kids too much these days in their world, like of
Mm.
play? So for
Mm.
me, it's just like Violet will want me to come and hang out with her and do all the things and run around and jump on the swings and
Mm.
and
Mm.
all that kind of stuff. But it's almost in a way, and there's no judgment here from me at all. But in a way, it's like that's their realm. I want her to go and play. And it's funny because you look around at all the dads, and the dads are so much more involved these days than,
Mm.
like I say, my dad ever would have been,
Yeah.
or my
Yeah.
mum. Because I had older brothers, and we would just sort of grab each other and we'd run down the bush and we'd get into trouble and do all that kind of stuff. So, but these days everyone's a bit more cautious and looking out for their kids and making sure they don't fall or hurt
Mm.
themselves or whatever. So, I just want to hear like your take on that. What do you think from your perspective?
Yeah. That's a pretty interesting thought, which you shared, Scott. So almost every other day, either me or my wife go to pick up my daughter from school, and we share that responsibility 50-50%. So 50% of the time Ashwini goes to pick up my daughter Adria, and I uh, go the other 50%. And there have been times in the last 2-3 months it's only Ashwini who has gone to pick Adira up. So after school, there's a small park just next to the school, and a lot of kids, who stay close by, they come and hang out in the park, and they play all these fun things around, and slides. And so if slides are meant to be used, ladder up, slide down, kids are, they reverse it. They use slide up, ladder down. So
Yeah.
they find their own innovative ways to kill boredom. uh, there are times where we want to be cautious, um, and I would say the concept of being cautious, we have to educate a kid or warn a kid about certain potential problems that they might face in a new setting, in a new environment. And once that is said, then we have to leave them to their own mercy. you know
Mm.
we have to let them be, let them fall, let them figure out whether jumping on that piece of rock or jumping from that piece of rock was a good idea or not.
Yeah.
So that they have to figure out, but we have to tell them, let's see, that is a rock, and if you hit
Yeah.
it with any part of your body at any speed, you're going to get hurt. And here's your body. The most delicate part in your body is going to be your head. So we want
Mm.
you to take care of your head. It should not hit any hard surface as hard as a rock. Now
Yeah.
that's the least we can do. But if we go on trying to figure out trying to figure out what they're doing every second, it does not help. uh,
Yeah.
on a funny side note, just day before yesterday, we were there to pick up Adira, and right near the park there were these two gigantic trees, and under those trees, um, so so the branches of the trees start growing like almost 5 to 10 inches above the ground. So it's not a traditional tree where the branches are like from 7 feet onwards or whatever. So this is a very low lying
Mm.
uh, tree. And so one of the parents was observing where his little girl child had gone, and he's seeing, and these two girls are hiding behind the tree and all that stuff. So that's when my wife said, uh, Prashant, I have told Adira not to go under that tree. I said, why? Like, what happens there? No, it's bad. I said, why? What? Like, do they do like funny physical things? Like, do they touch and feel each other? Like, what is happening? Like, I don't know. It's like, because are they? Do they get curious or something? And that's what kids. They are funny. They can do all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
funny
yeah,
things. So
yeah.
I went thinking on those lines. So so that's when Ashwini said, no, it's not that. It's because that's the favorite urinating spot for kids. It's their hideout spot. So there are, so when you're in
They're
a
like
certain
marking it like
position
animals or
over there.
something, you know.
Yeah. So when these kids right after school, when they come and play over there, they drink lots of water, and suddenly after 30 minutes they feel like peeing. There's no public urinal as such, so they have to they have to get this extra liquid that's floating in their body out.
Yeah, yeah.
And under the tree is the favorite spot for the parents to send their kids off to. So
Yeah, yeah.
now this is something that we need to be cautious about. Right, we won't know that, and god forbid they go into that place and they come back stinky, then then that's a lesson for us. So it's all what do you say, a mixed bag. But for
Mm,
most part of it, we have to educate them to at least their head is what they need to make sure that they're not falling head on anywhere,
yeah.
front, back, sideways. Rest of it, even if you send your kids in the most safest of safe place, they're going to find themselves in a very awkward
Oh,
situation if
definitely.
they because they like having fun.
Yeah, that's
But there
right.
was a point, Scott, where I was very possessive about not I would not say my daughter. I was very possessive about ensuring my daughter's safety. But soon I realized that I'm trying to overdo it. I should
Mm.
detach myself from that expectation that she's not going to get hurt. And today the
Yeah.
proof today the proof on my 10-year-old's body is that both her knees are massively bruised from cycle falls. Her elbows are massively bruised. She has got a bruise right above her left eyebrow. So things have happened, and I'm happy
Yeah.
that she has explored it, and she has experienced it. That's that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think they do need to experience it just to know what it feels like first. Obviously, like you said, you don't want anything to happen with the head, but they kind of need to know like what a fall feels like, to be going,
Yep.
oh, maybe I shouldn't be jumping off that 10-foot bridge, onto the ground. So yeah, and obviously too, like a bit of intel for the parents to know that that spot over there is the urinating spot. So
Mm.
it's kind of good to know those things. Definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, you can't be there all the time, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, what
Awesome.
have you got for us today, Prashant? See
Yeah.
some
So
interesting topics.
I had this thought, Scott, from a conversation that I was with one of the people whom I know. So, Scott, here's the thing. Um, as a parent, we have faced a lot of hardships, or we are still facing a lot of hardships, right? But our parents faced a lot of hardships when they were growing up, and they did their best to minimize all kinds of hardships that they could pass on to us as kids. Now, taking a lesson from their parenting style, we make sure that we reduce as much of hardships as we can. We can reduce for our kids, to give our kids the best life that they can with very less troubles. Now our kids will potentially live in a lap of luxury and comfort. Now this is where I have a question. I have a It's like a paradoxical question. So now when the kids have everything in life, they feel so entitled.
mm,
And when they feel entitled and they don't end up doing the things the way they are supposed to do, we get angry at them for not being understanding.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
suddenly we compare our upbringing and tell them that, when I grew up, I had to go through so much of troubles, and you are not even facing that. Be grateful for what you have in life. uh, so my question over here is that, why are we doing so much to shield our kids, or to give our kids so much, when we know that at a at at a crucial juncture in life, they are not going to listen to what we have given them or told them or advised them, and they are going to do things their own way, and
mm,
potentially trigger us in the wrong way, making us angry, or making us irritated, or making us wild. Like, what are your thoughts? It's an open
mm.
thought and a question.
Yeah, no, that's a very good topic. Hey, like yeah, I think it's a difficult one. Hey, this entitlement, um,
Yeah.
because I think like I guess you just want to make them happy, and making them happy means like giving them something, right? Or
Yeah.
and that could be anything. Could be a cuddle, could be whatever, could be TV, could be a lollipop or whatever, right? But I guess I guess that then takes a bit of momentum. Is like if they don't get that, then they start to get unhappy, and then you want to make them happy, and then they get unhappy, and so it's like this cycle.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't know, like, but it must be confusing for them too. Like when we turn around and say that, hey, you can't have this all the time because we didn't have it all the time either, and so they've got no
Yeah.
idea about that kind of concept at all. So it would be really, really confusing because I know, like for instance, sometimes you just when you're talking, you catch yourself listening to what you just said, right? And I'm just like,
Hmm.
holy shit. So, for instance, like Violet will always be like, hey, Dad, you need to do this, you need to do that. I'm like, I need to do this. I don't think I need to do this, Violet. If you maybe ask me a little bit nicer, like, you know, could you please do this, Daddy? And we tried,
Hmm.
can you
Hmm.
please, all this kind of stuff. And then I caught myself like, not long after just being like, hey, Violet, can you grab your pants because you need to put them on and you need to do this? And I'm like, all right, that's where she gets it from me. I'm the one who's saying it. So it's this confusing like
Yeah.
loop, I guess. It
Yeah.
just sort of keeps going on and on. And I guess maybe subconsciously too, there's this whole you see what other parents are doing on social media, or just even when you're at a barbecue or catching up with mates, you see their kids have this, their kids have that, and
Hmm.
subconsciously you're like, oh, that I could see Violet doing that, or I could see Louis doing that. That'd be cool to get that, so you start to get these things for them that can create this entitlement kind of thing,
Hmm.
because then they're at this barbecue and they see a kid who's got this thing that they want. They're like, well, why can't I have it? And then
Yeah.
so I guess maybe it just takes on a life of its own from there. What do you think?
Yeah. See, it's a it's a catch 22 situation. You
Mm,
want the kids to experience very as less of troubles or whatever, but
mm,
at the same time, what can we do to make them feel grateful for the things that they have?
yeah.
What exercise, or what physical activity we can make them do? Say, for example, if they are having everything easy in their life today, um, what can we do to make them feel a bit of discomfort and feel that, oh, this is what
Mm,
I'm missing from life, right?
mm,
Say, for example, my grandfathers and their parents, whatever, when they were growing up, they didn't even have uh, a good pair of footwear, and they had to walk barefoot. uh,
mm,
and today kids, they want Disney character based shoes, they want roller skate shoes, they want shoes that has got lights on it, they like
yeah.
all different kind of fancy stuff. So what can we do to make make them feel that they're not entitled? Like, take them to a very beautiful uh, park, and find the most roughest patch in that place, and make them walk barefoot and make them run barefoot. And when a
Yeah,
few
yeah,
splinters get into their feet, when a few pebbles start pricking them, like deep in their heels, is when they
yeah.
will scream out, "Dad, Mom!" And that's when we say, this is why you have what you
This is why
have,
you have
and this is
shoes.
why.
Yeah.
Yes. And
But
not
see, the
to
thing
put
is
them
like
through that trouble. Yeah.
we'll buy like Violet, a pair of shoes, and then she, like at the playground, like you said, off they come. They come straight off, and she's running barefoot through the thing,
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
did get a splinter in her feet, like when we took her to this place, Shorncliffe. There's this big, huge pier, wooden
Yeah.
pier.
Yeah.
She was, oh, you got to put your shoes on. No, 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 no. And she ran up the thing, and then she got like
Mm.
5 little splinters in her feet, And it's like,
Yeah.
well, we did try to say it, but can't tell them, that's for
So,
sure.
one example or one real life story that I'm thinking of is, so I have this friend of mine, from back from my radio days when I used to work in radio, and his name was Samir Joshi. So he's a beautiful person at heart. He's very traditionalist, but still very liberal in his thoughts and ideologies and all that stuff. So once when we are having a conversation, this is much before my marriage. He was married and he had a kid, a son, um, at that point when I was chatting with him. So he shared this philosophy of his parenting philosophy. He said that, see, Prashant, the now, did you see this new car model that has come, which has got like great suspension, so that if you go through potholes, you won't feel that you're going through a pothole. The car suspension takes care of it, and your back and all will be like intact, and you won't feel backache if you're going through a patchy road. So I said, yeah, that's a great car, and it's very expensive, right? This is almost 20 years back, Scott, this
Mm,
conversation.
right,
So,
yeah.
so he says, yeah, it is a latest car model, but you know what? I'm not going to buy that car. I said, why? It's too expensive for you. You can't afford it. No, no. I can get a loan and I can get the car. So he said, then why are you not getting? He said that, Prashant, if I get the car, I will use it for my own luxury. But can you imagine my son going through that luxury? I don't want him to go through that luxury. I want him to use my old car, which has not got suspensions and which has got creaky brakes and creaky wheels, and he has to sit in it. He has to go through the potholes, feel his head shaking and vibrating for 10 seconds after it goes through a pothole. He has to feel the pain of it. After he feels the pain of it, he should come up with the statement to me, Dad, why are other kids going in better cars than us? Can we afford that car? Can we buy that car? That's when I'm going to have a conversation with him and tell him what privilege is, what
Mm,
entitlement is, what
mm,
luxury is. And I was suddenly reminded of this conversation that I had with this friend of mine. So this is another good way to tackle
mm.
these problems. I don't know how much of it you can practically imply, but I'm sure you're going to get ideas from these three different perspectives that Scott shared, the story of my friend Samir, and probably
Mm.
my my take on this topic. Yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, so
definitely.
this can be a never ending conversation, Scott. I
Oh
think so.
man, it would
Yeah.
go on and on forever, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What do you have next?
Well, mobile phones are the new cigarettes, right? I saw
Mm,
this on the way home from work on, I think it was Thursday. I'm sitting on the bus because I get public transport to work, and like we've got one car, so we made that decision a while back to get rid of 2 cars, one for financial reasons, but two just to sort of, yeah, I guess just to it's not easier, but I guess it's just we can't take on that extra luxury basically at the moment.
mm,
So anyway, catching bus home, and I just sat down, and I'm sort of in the aisle seat that looks. There's these 2 seats at the front of the bus that look at each other, and the rest look towards the front of the bus. So I'm sitting there, and you get it like a view of down the bus, right? You see down to the right, down to the left and across, and everyone is just on their phones, just straight on their phones. Or people will come on the bus, tap on, then straight in the pocket, out comes the phone, and everyone's just doing this. And it just occurred to me, it's like, back in the day, that was a cigarette that would come out, and people would just be lighting up and smoking a cigarette, and just contemplating it. But people don't contemplate that anymore with the phone. It's just like head down, straight into it. And I'm one of those people too. Like, there's no judgment. I get my phone out too, and I'm like straight on it, like, and it's a never ending thing. And then suddenly you feel the pain in the neck, and you're wondering where that pain in the neck is coming from, because you just consumed on this thing. It just takes over our lives. But it's almost like this addiction that you can't break. It's just this mobile phone, and suddenly you get drawn in because you might have to answer an email on the way to work, or you looking for real estate for my mum, and all this kind of stuff. So what's it like over there in Canada? Is it a similar phenomenon?
No, it's pretty similar for me over here, and definitely a lot of I think so, Scott. This could be a case that's pretty common across the world when you're commuting, or when you are you're in
It's not even
transit
just commuting.
anywhere.
It's like people who have got like a spare couple of minutes. It's like bang,
Yes,
straight out it comes, and you straight onto it.
yes. So the thought being that you are always waiting to be stimulated. You want
Mm,
some kind of adrenaline. You want to feel that you are in the middle of action. You want to feel that you are getting something out of this silence, or you're getting something out of this weird place that you're stuck in and you don't want to be. And
mm,
somehow, uh, if it was intended for a good use, or if it is put to a good use, maybe mobile phones and the content that is shared through it can be used as therapy, but not in its current state, not in its current content flow, not in its current, you know this vanity metrics that everyone is playing, the vanity game that everyone is playing, going to these cool places and sharing cool pictures, and having rented rented
yeah,
aircrafts and saying that you're flying business class, and all that
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. uh, what I feel is that because most of the world is living this highly stressful, highly um, uh, you know tightly knit life, from
Mm,
their be it their 9 to 5 or their 5 to 9. They need to just break away from the monotony. They just need
mm,
to break away from that. And I think so, the problem is people don't know how much to restrict it, how much to limit it, how much to limit
mm,
that stimulation in their day-to-day lives. And if you don't know how to limit it, then it's pure poison. It's addiction.
mm,
It's like any other drug, you know
yeah.
um luckily for me, over here at home, most of our things are regulated, not out of like enforcing and trying to live this kind of great life, whatever, out
Mm,
of practice, and out of the need for being less stimulated in life, has led to a lot of crucial decisions. Like, we don't have a lot of expensive things around the house, we just have essential things, so we live a very essentialist life.
mhm.
Now, right now, as I'm talking to you, today is the first day in this entire week my daughter is watching television. She's watching a
Nice.
movie of a choice for 1.5 hours. So she has
Mhm,
got a Saturday and Sunday that she can watch television. But at the same time, she says that when she goes to school, some of her seniors, they get phones to school. Seventh grade kids, sixth grade kids, they get phones to school and they watch TikTok. And she was talking about some new trend that she saw on TikTok. Now that is going to be crazy, right? We don't
I
know
know.
what is being served to kids. But one thing is clear, that because of the deep intention that me, my wife, and I want to believe my daughter also has, to be less stimulated. My
Mm.
daughter going forward, she will also want to choose this path, knowing the good effects of consuming less from the
Mm.
outside world, because
Yep.
what we consume is what we put in our head, and what we put in our head is what we choose from to make decisions. And from that decisions, one horrible thing that we all do as humans is we react, and we react on the basis of what we have consumed, what is there in our head.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
we can
Yep.
only respond, the art of responding only comes when there is huge gaps of silence in your head, when there
Mm.
is very less content in your head, so that you have got time to reflect, you have got time to think, you have got time to breathe and
Mm.
figure out what is happening to you. So that's a very interesting insight, Scott. And I think so, for a very long unforeseeable future, this is what it's going to be, this is what it's going to be. People are going to be glued, you know.
Mm.
You might see people with neck braces now, a very
Yeah.
cool designer neck
Yeah.
brace, you know,
Yeah.
with
So-
like
and they can put their
like
favorite characters on there and sticker it up and stuff like that, like the
yeah,
mobile phone case,
yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's a
it's
next
crazy.
$1 million business now.
Yeah, yeah.
Creating neck
Like
braces.
Casetify, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy, man. Yeah, and look, I think that's kind of why we let Violet watch TV, and that's fine, and she can watch her favorite TV shows and stuff like that. Maybe about an hour a day or something like that. But we sort of drawn the line at an iPad and
Hmm.
that kind of stuff, So, and we always try and supplement that. We've got a dog, so we're
Hmm.
always out walking the
Oh,
dog.
nice.
She's got a bike. She's got two bikes. We've got bushland behind us, that kind of stuff, So that's the priority.
Hmm.
And then you just can't sort of look after your kids all the time. So the TV nanny sort of comes in every now and then for us and helps out. But
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be a difficult conversation, I think, when it's like, Dad, why can't I have a mobile phone or a tablet? You know what I mean? So, because I just, me and Charlotte, we just don't want to go there for that, for the reasons why I'm looking at the people in the neck and the addiction. It's just it's not something that we
Yeah,
want to do for sure.
yeah, that's truly uh, a constant challenge that we're going to face on
Mm,
a everyday basis. Yeah.
yeah.
That said, one of the guys that I watch on a daily basis, Scott, is a person called Alex Hormozi. He is an entrepreneur. He's a self-made entrepreneur.
Okay.
He was in the fitness business. Back in the days, you would call him as a fitness entrepreneur. Now he's just a plain entrepreneur. He runs this company called as acquisition.com. He's a multimillionaire. He had this very insightful video about his relationship with his dad. And that's where this next quote comes from. I can either die to myself or I can die to my father.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other correlated quote to this is, the idea of disappointing him, my father, or not getting his approval felt like death. So why does he say this? So when Alex says the idea of disappointing him or not getting his approval felt like death, he means that his father's opinion of him was so important that the thought of not meeting his expectations was unbearable. So Alex felt a strong need to constantly please his father and gain his approval, which caused him a lot of anxiety and pressure, and he ended up
Mm,
doing things that he didn't like doing. And that caused a lot of negative side effects inside of him. And then when he goes on to say, I can either die to myself or I can die to my father, he's expressing the difficult choice he had to make between pursuing his own desires and goals or continuing to live his life according to his father's expectations. So
mm,
Alex soon realized that he could either sacrifice his own identity and desires to please his father, or risk disappointing him by pursuing his own path. It was a difficult decision, but ultimately Alex chose to prioritize his own happiness and fulfillment, and he just left his home one day. He drove off with his car much far and wide from where his father was staying, and he started looking for odd jobs, and that was his start for becoming what he is today. So one more point I wanted to add in this thing is, Scott, Alex had an immigrant father. I think so. They immigrated um, from Iran. His dad immigrated from Iran. So much to the earlier point, what we were discussing about what is entitlement, what is struggle, for our kids today, in context of what
Mm,
our parents faced, what we faced.
mm,
This quote of Alex highlights the forceful imposition of struggle on the kid, saying that
mm,
I used to do it back in the days. I used to grow up in this way, and if you want to survive in this new country, you have to follow these principles, or you have to go through this struggle, and you have to please me always, else it is going to
mm,
end up, your life is going to end up in disaster.
mm.
And that's where this quote really shone for me, and I really started thinking about all the occasions and moments in our life where our parents are immigrants or not does not matter here, but so many of our decisions, so many of our choices in our life as kids that we have made were based on our parents' tastes, were based on our parents' boundaries or circles that they laid around us. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that still happens with us, right? Like
Yep.
subconsciously, it's like what we've taken from our upbringing now, we're putting that onto our kids. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's a vicious cycle. Even if you have awareness about it, it's still there's that subconscious element that just keeps traveling through like a thread to your kids,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
my dad was an immigrant too. He immigrated to Australia in the 60s. He was like a 10-pound pom, which is they coined a 10-pound pom. So I think in England they were offering trades to come over to Australia.
Oh.
Or the Australian government, I should say, were offering incentive for workers to come over and get a trade over in Australia and whatnot to immigrate and work over here. So my dad did that. I think it was like £10, caught a boat over in the 60s, came over, and then that was it. You know, he lived his life here.
Mm.
And, you know, he similar sort of thing. He worked hard, man. He worked 2 jobs, had 4 kids. And in the end, he didn't struggle. He made it. You know, he was very comfortable. My mum and dad were
Yep.
very comfortable. All middle class, you know what I mean? We weren't anything ridiculous. But yeah, my dad then was always like, you know, you've got to do this. You got to do it like a trade. A trade, you have to do a trade. It'll
Yep.
set you up for life. Then you buy a house. Then you do this. Then you do that. You know. And for me, I hated trades. Like I did when I was 18. I got a trade as an air conditioning mechanic, and I
Mm.
fucking hated it. It was just not me at all. And I
Mm.
struggled through it, you know, for $180 a week. My boss was a complete asshole to me, and I just hated it. And it wasn't until I made that decision to say, right, I've
Mm.
just got to follow what I like to do, you know. And so I got into sound production and audio engineering, and I followed that sort of path into, you know, TV and film and that kind of stuff. And my dad was cool about it. Like he was never like, oh, all right, that's it, you're shunned. But there was all these things that sort of came away from our relationship too that I found out later, because my dad would always he would always not speak very highly of his home
Mm.
country. He didn't have a good time in his home country, and I always wondered why he would say Australia is the best country in the world. Like England, don't want to know about it, don't ever want to go back there, that kind of stuff. And I was always wondering why that was the case. Anyway, when me and Charlotte went traveling, we went around the world for like 18 months, and we ended up living in the UK. Lived in London for a year, and I went and met my uncle and auntie up in Warrington, sort of like near Manchester, anyway, in the UK. It was
Wow.
great. It was the first time I met him, and the
Mm.
spitting image of my dad, like same mannerisms, same everything. And this is like my uncle and my dad, they didn't speak like for years, like I don't know, maybe 30 years or something in that.
Mm.
And me going over there brought them back together, right? And so they started having conversations again. But I started finding out little bits and pieces about my dad's history and why he sort of shunned where he was from. And so,
Mm.
there was this backstory of, he had a previous marriage and it didn't work out well and they divorced, and that wasn't the thing to do back in the 60s, you know what I mean? So that
Mm.
was part of his reason of leaving the country and getting out there. And yeah, it's funny how you sort of keep like he just kept these things guarded and was like, I need to protect you guys from this,
Mm.
and so I guess in that point, he's coming from that loving place where I only want the best from you for you guys, but there's all these sort of contradictions underneath that. For me, once I unraveled them, I'm like, this is not so bad, like learning
Mhm.
about this stuff. I understand why he is the way that he is, and he sort of enforced the things that he did. But I mean, if you can't reach that point of following your heart, well, like what's going on here? You're either going to die to yourself or die to your father, right? So I
Mm.
think it's a sticky situation, but unless you have, I guess, got that awareness to follow what is in
Yep.
your heart, then you're gonna be pretty miserable, I'd say. Now, I probably got really off track then, but
No, no,
what
I
do you?
think so. I think so. Your immigration story, or your dad's immigration story, is really amazing. I'd never heard of it before. Thank you for sharing it.
Mm,
Um, See, again, the sensibilities, right? Like, when today when you hear of Alex's story, and how he said his father imposed whatever restrictions on him, today he's forgiven his father for who he was and what. When he says that, and he also credits his father, if his father was not as so-called cruel or as harsh on him, he wouldn't have been where he is today,
mm,
because he was pushed to the edge by his father. And
mm,
only when he was pushed to the edge is when he discovered his brilliance, or his his true calling to do what
mm,
he wants in life, or what he needed to do in life. So I think so, it's hand in glove kind of a thing. It is needed. You need that aggressiveness. You need that person who is um, you know um, good intentioned, yet very cruel, very cruel at
sure.
times. You need that. And only once you have that contrast, you're going to you're going to think about where you are in life, and what are the choices you have made to reach where you are, and whether you want to continue being surrounded with this person or not. You have to challenge certain certain people, certain statements, certain
Mm,
places. And if you feel that that is not the right place, right person, right situation for you, just move out. Things will fall in place. But that desire for you to change, that is what I think so is the most important here. So today, in Alex's case, it was his father. For many around the world, it could be their mother, it could be their uncles, it could be their brothers, it could be anyone. So
yeah,
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 a good
definitely.
lesson and an insight which is there. And also having that immigrant touch, where you're either hiding much of your struggles from back in the days, and you don't want to impose that or bring that kind of
Mm.
struggle to your kid also. That's also an interesting insight that we had today from listening to your story, Scott.
Yeah, and also one last thing I put on there too, like these things are they're all here for our learning. So last
Yeah.
episode, I said that my dad, had that phrase, "You live and you learn." So
Mm.
these things are all there for our learning, and so if we can take, the pushy dad or the strict father or the cultural things, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
they're all here, sort of banging on our door until we wake
Mm.
up and say, "Shit, I've got to follow my heart, not what's in my
Yeah.
head." Like you're going to continue down that path until you finally wake up or not.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, I think it's definitely important to just have a bit of silence and just try and listen, see what goes on.
Yeah. Scott, so before we wrap up, what is
Mm.
the weird, happy, fun, exciting thing that you discovered online that you would like to share? And then I'll share my discovery of the week. Do you have something that you would like to?
Yeah, there's well, yeah, there's this one. It's a little bit. It's like it's a really good feel good story at the same time, but
Mhm.
there's also question marks underneath it. So there's this. It's this healthcare. It's called Healthcare in the Land of the Free, right? So
Okay.
there's a lady in Florida,
Hmm.
an older woman in Florida who spent her life savings looking
Hmm.
after her daughter who had breast cancer.
Hmm.
And finally, her daughter did her last treatment, and her mum has bought this lotto ticket
Hmm.
and won $2 million. And so
Wow.
her mum was like, yeah, she would buy lotto tickets like all the time.
Hmm.
But the day after, I think it was like the day after the treatment had finished, she won $2 million. And so it's just like beautiful, uplifting story that she'd just given everything to her daughter, and then finally she gets repaid back. But
Hmm.
the undercurrent under that is that that the healthcare system in the US is pretty dire, and
Hmm.
this is on Reddit, so all the comments underneath, from Americans who are sort of like, this is a great story, but why does it have to get this way to be able to achieve or get the healthcare that we need? Why does somebody have to
Yep.
spend their life savings, right? So I'm not sure what it's like in Canada or India, but we're kind of lucky in Australia that a lot of our taxes go towards the healthcare
Yep.
system here. And so like with Louis, like we had Louis in public hospital and didn't cost us a dime. Like
Hmm.
bits and pieces that along the way sort of cost us, but we went private first, and so we paid up front, and that was great. We got like a room to
Hmm.
ourselves for 3 nights and fed and stuff like that, but it was a luxury. And
Hmm.
with Louis, it was like it was no different, and the midwives who are paid by the public system, they deliver the baby, and the doctor comes in last minute, cuts the cord, and goes, "Thanks very much," and then out they go. So, in the public setting, it was just the midwives there delivering the baby and the whole thing. So it was amazing, and I just I'm kind of grateful that we have that sort of level of healthcare in Australia. But yeah, what do you think?
Yep. Yeah. I think so. It's like a universe calling for the mother to win that that amount
Mm,
of money, and that's been insane. That's really an uplifting story. So I was grinning through all your conversation when you were talking about healthcare, because and
mhm.
the reason being that you're in um, Brisbane, which is Australia. Um, I was there in Perth almost 4 5 years back, and I heard so many good things about the healthcare over there. Um, Back then, I'm sure it is mostly the same today. Also, people were raving about the
Mostly, yeah.
healthcare services in Perth. Then today, here I'm in Canada. Canada also has got a beautiful healthcare system. Most of the taxes, taxpayers' money goes towards that.
Mm,
Um, of course, there are insurance and all those other things attached to it, but
yeah, yeah,
for the most part, you have not to pay a single dime for um, unless and until it's some really grave situation that you're in. It's
yeah.
mostly free. Then back in India, we have got a wealth of amazing doctors and medical professionals. There are multiple modalities of healing, alternate therapies. We are in abundance in terms of healthcare systems in India, and this I'm talking about. Most of the metro cities or most of the developed cities in India, the situation will be a little different, or maybe on a borderline darker side when you go to rural or interior parts of India. But for the most part, uh, uh, there are good hospitals and there are good doctors who are there in India. Now, the thing about US, I've heard many friends, I've heard many weird stories and horror stories of people not wanting to step into the hospital because of this very same reason, that they get these huge bills. And I've seen, I'm sure you would have also seen, and many of our listeners today also would have seen so many films based in US, where you've seen that they go in for a small cut on their finger and they've got like this huge bill, like which is like five
Yeah.
thousand, $6,000. And
Yeah.
it really shakes the the whole financial stability of a person. And
Mm,
I don't know what needs to be done to fix it, but whenever it'll be fixed, it'll be the best thing that will happen to that country.
I'm sure.
um
Yeah.
yeah, Scott, so now I am going to drop in a link on that same sheet.
Yep.
You would have seen it updated. It's a small Instagram reel which
Yep.
this mother shared of a son called Elisa. So it's this small little boy who's sitting in his small little table and chair, and he's reading a book and sipping a hot cup of what, tea or something. And his mother has written over here, "I packed lunches for Ayan and Alia, and I look over to see Ayan just casually drinking his lemon and honey tea and reading a book. At first I laughed, because who does he think he is? But then I realized that I'm glad that he has this moment of calm and focus for himself before he starts his day at school. I hope your day is off to a great start too." And I really loved this visual of this little boy, just taking his time, and almost like
He's
a
like a man
80-year
child,
old
isn't he?
grandpa. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he just needs a cardigan on. Like,
Yeah.
mate, it's just
S-
so casual.
I just loved it. So, on that particular video, a child therapist, somewhere, deep down in the comment graveyard, someone is a child therapist has said, "As a child therapist, I'm so happy that he already has the emotional regulation and coping mechanisms in place at this
Mm,
younger age." And that's the
man.
beauty of, some kids just get it. some
Yeah.
kids some kids are zero bullshit, full on
Yeah.
abundance, be do have, and they're living the life of, um, life of abundance through them. And
And he'll be
this
like a
is
leader of some sort, like when he's older.
for sure, at least till the
Yeah.
time his mom gives him a cell phone and he has his neck
Yeah,
glued
true.
down.
Yeah, and then he's derailed it. Oh,
Yeah.
poor kid. Hopefully
Yeah.
that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully that does not happen. And that is, I think so, been a great episode today, Scott. We covered a lot of
We
topics.
did.
We started on a deeply emotional note, um, with your story, and I loved both your stories that directly had got to do with your dad. So thank you so much for sharing your stories.
No, thank you.
And
Thank you for your support, Prashant.
yes, and I hope you, the fantastic listener who has been supporting us all through our journey, will find this to be the best episode. I think so. This is the best episode because Scott has really opened up in this one, and I could see his passion, and I could see his love, and I could see his warm heart in this one. I'm sure if you're watching us or if you're hearing us, you would have felt it too. That's the end of today's episode, Scott.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Prashant. Yeah, always happy to leave comments and stuff like that. And yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys, and appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.
Ciao. Bye bye.
Bye.